My name is Arnon Shorr. I'm a filmmaker, screenwriter, graphic novelist, and proud alum. This event is being co-hosted by Michelle Miller, who you will see very shortly, who is an actress. She hosts a wonderful podcast called Mentors on the Mic, which you should subscribe to. And she's also an alum. We have some really exciting guests today. They are directors, in some cases writers, producers as well, here in Hollywood, doing really, really great work. We're going to talk to them soon. Before we start, one of the things that we like to do is take a little bit of a survey. You'll see a survey thing pop up on your screen in a second. We'd like to get a little bit of a sense of who it is we're talking to. Are we talking to alumni, to current students, friends of alumni? And this next question that you'll see shortly is we want to find out if you're in the industry or not. How much shop should we be talking versus how much we might want to explain a little bit. So while you're answering the survey questions, I'm going to go through a little bit of the business to tell you a little bit about who we are, what we do. And I apologize for reading off a script, but I'm not an actor, so I'm terrible at memorizing things. Today's event and this series are being put together under the auspices of the Brandeis Arts Network. We're a group exclusive to Brandeis undergraduate and graduate alumni that enables anyone involved in the arts, both professionals and enthusiasts alike, to engage, share, and experience the vast array of artistic endeavors of fellow Brandeisians on campus, across the country, and abroad. The Brandeis Arts Network also encompasses and supports the efforts of the Performing Arts Network and the Brandeis alumni in film and television. You can find Brandeis Arts Network, the Performing Arts Network, and Brandeis alumni in film and television on Facebook. And don't forget to mark your calendars for the next panel, which is going to be Tuesday, July 27th. We try to space them on Tuesdays, roughly 1 month apart. All right, let's take a quick look at our survey results. I'm going to share the results now. All right, we've got a lot of folks here who are here out of general interest, which is wonderful. And then a few people looking to grow their career or to enter into the film and television industry. That's a good split. And it looks like we've got mostly Brandeis alumni in the group as well, which is exciting. I'm going to clear the poll results. All right. So before I kick things over to Michelle, I just want to remind everybody here, if you are on camera, that's great. Just please remember that you're on camera. And remember, please stay on mute while the panelists are talking, just so we don't hear too much background chatter or any of those other unexpected sounds. And with that, Michelle, would you like to take it away?
I would love to take it away. Thank you, Arnon. Guys, this is so exciting. I am personally loving the people that we brought today. Thank you guys all for attending. I'm going to give everyone a chance to just give a little 1 minute intro on who they are, what they do. So let's start with Rosemary. Rosemary, take it away.
Okay. Nice to be here. Thank you so much. So I went to Brandeis and got out and tried to pursue a career in film and worked in independent film in New York for many years, and couldn't get a lot of headway, but learned a lot from casting to, boom, to one-person news crew, to you name it, I did it. And then could not get money to make a movie. I wrote a script. Took me 8 years to finally save the money with a little book, next to my bed. I kept every paycheck I made, got enough money to get it shot, went to Sundance with it. It was called Acts of Worship. And then was back at my day job after going around the world to festivals and Independent Spirit Awards and all the stuff you would hope to happen with an indie film. And then back at my day job. So then was lucky enough to get into a fellowship for John Wells, his Women and Minority fellowship that he had through Warner Brothers, and then transitioned into television. And then, took off from there. Well, I should say trudged along before it took off. And then made another feature, and I'm working on my third feature now. And I've just been directing television for many years, and and creating my own stuff at this point in my career. So yeah, the second feature I made is Silver Skies too, just to say that. But yeah, and I'm working on my third feature, so life is good. Happy to be here.
Oh, exciting. Yeah, I'm going to definitely have some follow-up questions on that. But some of the projects you worked on, oh, there's so many, but like Rescue Me, Law and Order, The Unusuals, Criminal Minds, Elementary, Dickinson, which I believe we have Michael Sugar who produces that. So I don't know if you know Michael, or, but it's just, you know, I love bringing the Brandeis connections up.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
amazing. So yeah, lots of great stuff. I can't wait to hear more about that. Jason, would you like to go next?
Sure. Thank you. And thanks for having me. I graduated Brandeis in 1992. And then I went to USC Film School. When I got out, I was hired to do a piece for the 50th anniversary of Brandeis, which became a mockumentary called Searching for Alison Porchnick, which included an appearance by Marshall Herskovitz. And that actually led to a gig at NBC Promo, where I stayed for several years, and we launched The West Wing, Freaks and Geeks, Law and Order SVU, Will and Grace. And then I transitioned into episodic television and pilot directing. Most recently, I produced and directed the Exorcist TV series for Fox, The Passage, and the second season of Love, Victor is on Hulu, premiered 2 weeks ago. So check that out. And that's me.
Amazing. I love that. Thank you for sharing that. I'm going to ask Courtney if she can add the link for Searching for Alison Porchnick, because it's amazing. There we go. It's amazing. And you get all these incredible alumni. It's all on this like awesome plot of trying to find an alum named Alison Porchnick. And let's just say we have some really great non-Brandeis and Brandeis cameos that are incredible. And now, last but not least, Marshall, if you could introduce yourself.
Sure. I went to Brandeis in the antediluvian age, so many years ago, I don't even want to say, and decided I wanted to be a filmmaker, and came to Hollywood, and of course, couldn't get hired, couldn't do anything. You know, what Rosemary described about herself sounded very familiar. In those days, all you had was the yellow pages, and no one would hire me. I ended up in film school at the American Film Institute, which was a great experience, and managed to claw my way into the business as a writer, even though I intended to be a director. And I finally became a director after I became a producer and hired myself to direct. So it's a tough business, and it's always been tough. It's tough now. But, you know, in every iteration of this business, there are opportunities for creative people if they're willing to be supple enough to figure out how they can fit into what the business needs. And, you know, over the years, I became partnered with Edward Zwick, who I met at the American Film Institute, and we done a lot of TV shows, 30-something, My So-Called Life, a lot of movies, Legends of the Fall and The Last Samurai, and look, we've had a great ride, and the thing I'm most proud of is that really every single thing we've done, we did because we wanted to, which is a real gift in this business, because it's you know, in general, you will, you know, find that people that the opportunities given to you may not be what fit what you want to do or even what your skills are. So I think for us, the greatest part was being able to choose what we did. I'm not sure that's true anymore, to be honest, about the business, but we had a good run, and now we're still in it, but things are definitely changing.
Amazing. You know, my first question was really going to be that, and this idea of how did you guys get started? What was your first paid role in directing? And I love that you guys included that in your intro, because I think that people coming into the industry, which was part of our polls, obviously there are people here who are interested in entering this industry, maybe becoming directors, and they want to know how. And you guys kind of touched on, you know, fellowships, starting with film, how difficult it is. Do any of you have any advice for people, for directors who want to enter the industry, and how different it could be now from when, you know, when you were entering? Any advice on that? Just entering the industry, starting. being paid as a director as opposed to starting out and figuring it out from scratch. Any advice on that?
Well, I can just say that there's two things, both related to the Directors Guild of America. The DGA has, if you go to their website, they have every fellowship now, because when I did it, literally, it was kind of like what Marshall's talking about. It was like, this fellowship wasn't listed anywhere. It wasn't online. You couldn't find it out. It was like word of mouth. I was very fortunate. But now there's like 20 of them. There's like HBO, Fox, ABC, NBC, like everybody has one now. And also I had to direct a feature, which now you can just do a short. So, you know, other than going and directing a short and using your phone and doing it, go on the DGA website. There's a list of all those fellowships. And also the Directors Guild has also a directors diversity initiative that has many programs within to help people, train them to show up on set and what the politics are, how do you have a tone meeting, all that stuff. So there's a lot of resources out there for people, but there's of course a lot of competition.
Yeah, there are a lot of pathways to become a director, and they're all difficult, by the way. You know, you can be a writer, you can be a producer. What's different now, and has been true for the last 15 or 20 years, is that there's equipment out there. You know, a DSLR can make a professional looking film, and you can get your friends and you can make a movie and you can edit it on your computer. That wasn't true when I came into the business. And I often tell people, go out and make a movie. It doesn't matter if it's 5 minutes or an hour or 2 hours. The key is, I think, that too many people think that directing is about sort of the special effects and the bigness of it, when really, you know, directing is about making moments happen and figuring out how to shoot a scene and figuring out how to show the connection between two people. It doesn't matter if they're in space or they're in the West or they're in a drawing room. You know, what I think is the studios and producers are looking for are the skills that draw you into a story, and you can do that in your living room. So that's the advice I tend to give people these days.
Excellent. Jason?
I had a meeting, I think this is still universal advice. I had a meeting with Chuck Russell, who directed The Mask and Eraser and the remake of The Blob with Frank Darabont, to be his assistant when I was temping at Fox many years ago. And we ended up having a long conversation about movies, and at the end of which he said, "I'm not going to hire you to be my assistant. I want you to go and direct anything you can get your hands on, and wake up in the morning and call yourself a director, and create the mindset where you are a director." So, and to Marshall's point, it's, you know, it's about those reductive moments. It's about capturing life, stealing life. Werner Herzog always said that as filmmakers, we're kind of thieves. Like, we steal moments, we create moments, and then they're only there for a limited amount of time. We set them up and then we steal it. And so it's about sort of the mindset of calling yourself a director and then going out and grabbing those moments and creating a story out of it.
Oh, it's beautiful. Thanks, guys.
I add one other thing, which is, because I'm a writer director, and I also produced my first, if I went back in time, and I have no regrets, however, but if I went back in time, I would definitely say the writer part of me is the part, because Marshall said something really key, which is, when I mentor people now and they're writer directors, I tell them to get into writing in television, to go that route, because if you could create, and then you can produce your own show, and then you can direct it. But as a director, I am never invited in the writer's room. Like, that's a taboo. That's never done. They don't even want me to visit the writer's room. And so it doesn't matter that I've written and directed a couple features. Like, that doesn't matter. So to go back, I would say, and also it's just more powerful position at this point in the game. So I would definitely encourage people that are writer directors to go the writer's route.
Oh, that's
Yes.
good. Yeah, and then make their way into directing. That's great. Thank you. Guys, by the way, everyone here, we're gonna leave room for Q&A at the end. So if you have any questions, feel free to type them in. So my next question, this kind of is sort of segued from what Rosemary just said, is about your directorial voice. So what sort of sets you guys apart, and what would you describe as to be your directorial voice, and how did you figure out what that was essentially? And so if that becomes, you know, even just the message of what Rosemary said, she's a writer director, that informs, I think, maybe your directing and your directing style. So how would you guys categorize or describe your directorial voice, and, you know, teach us a little bit about that?
Someone want to go?
I know I'm dropping these really deep questions,
All right,
and
I'll
so
go.
it's just going to take a moment to marinate.
I'll go, although I don't think it's very easy to define. I think that I personally, I feel that a director's voice is very much influenced by who that director's heroes are, who that director, you know, learned from in the grand scheme of things. And, you know, I would say that my voice was incredibly heavily influenced by a combination of Richard Lester and Frank Capra, which is to say, and probably many people on this don't even know who Richard Lester was and never saw a Richard Lester film. He did A Hard Day's Night, and he did The Three Musketeers that was done in the 1970s with Michael York. And he was just a brilliant, brilliant, funny director. Like Robert Altman, they believed in the chaos of life, in the fullness of scenes and behavior and activity. And if you look at Capra's films, they're very much like that as well. There's so much behavior that people have. There's so much business. There's life going on the screen all the time. And I always found that so incredibly delightful to look at. And I remember, it's funny, I remember when we first saw Star Wars, which we saw the first day it came out in 1976, I remember understanding that Lucas, or seeing that Lucas understood that idea that as a director, you need to give gifts to the audience. You need to give them something to delight in. And every 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 seconds in Star Wars, there would be something just to enjoy, that, you know, a little robot walks by, or a funny line, or this or that, that showmanship, that sense of entertaining people with reality, with human nature. That combination is, to me, at the heart of what I try to do as a director.
Amazing.
That reminds me of a story that Stanley Kubrick told on The Shining, or maybe it was Nicholson. Nicholson told the story that he was trying to be more naturalistic and more real with each performance. And that's how he played Jack Torrance for the first few days of shooting. And Kubrick walked up to him and said, "What are you doing?" And he said, "I'm trying to be real. I'm trying to be naturalistic, I'm trying to be honest." And he said, "Well, it's honest, but it's not fucking interesting." and so there's something about,
Wow.
and I love what Marshall said, but there you have to be conscious of the audience at times, sort of in the back of your head. No matter how sort of real or honest or authentic it is, the thing that you're capturing, you have to, I think it was, I'm sorry, I'm quoting people. I think it was Hitchcock who said that the director is the conductor and the audience is the orchestra. And so just the understanding that there is an illusion, there is a manipulation, and that what you want them to feel is part of your language as a filmmaker.
100%.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think for me, I was very influenced by movies of the 70s. So very influenced by, I mean, Robert Altman at one point got to do research for him, Marshall, and I was like, I couldn't believe he was going to make a movie about Amos and Andy, and I'd just go research it and then come and sit and talk to him about everything I learned. It was like a dream come true.
Yeah.
But him and John Cassavetes, and it's funny when Marshall started talking about heroes, I was like, oh, heroes. I thought of my dad, and then I went to, we have to, like, I think that if you're a director or writer, you have to have something to say. and you have to have something to offer that audience. So unless you have this driving, burning desire to tell stories. So for me, when you asked the question, Michelle, I was thinking, my dad was a bookie. And so for me, I've always been fascinated with like right and wrong and justice and unjust, and how do people present themselves, and how do you act in the world versus when you have personal moments, you know, and characters are alone, and big wide things, and then very tight little like extreme close-ups and details, and just the big picture, and then that little humanity inside. And I think that's informed because I'm always trying to make sense of like, what did my father do for a living, and how did I find that out, and it's all, and I'm adopted, like all the stuff that it's true. It's but it's absolutely true what you're both saying about, it's about the audience, because self-indulgence in filmmaking is horrific and arrogant, and I have no time for it. Like, it really bothers me when I see people and like gazillions of dollars thrown at somebody who's ultimately just very self-involved and self-indulgent. That drives me crazy. But I think connecting people and putting them in a room, and, you know, or through streaming, and letting them feel something about their life. I mean, when I saw Secrets and Lies, like Mike Leigh's film, 6 months later, I was looking for my birth mother. Like, that's the power of movies, you know,
Yeah.
and that's what I strive for, is to make those kind of movies. Doesn't mean everybody wants to, you know, see those kind of movies, because often those are not the big commercial movies. But the combination of those type of movies with big commercial movies and visual effects, I think is happening more and more, and that's really exciting.
Yeah, I think what Jason said is so true. There's a difference between expressing yourself and communicating. You can express yourself in a vacuum and nobody gives a shit. You know, communicating is what a director has to do. And that means talking to the audience. And I mean, you know, I think certainly over the years, I've taught myself to look at what I'm doing through the audience's eyes, and even on the set and in the editing room. And I don't know if anybody saw the film about Hitchcock that came out a few years ago. And it was, there's that wonderful moment when the shower scene in Psycho is playing in the theater, and he's out in the lobby, and he's like conducting, he's waiting for the laughs and the screams and the explosions from the audience, and he knows exactly when they're going to come and how big they are, because he had the audience in his head. And that's really, I think, what we're all trying to say, is that if you're not communicating, then you're not really doing the job.
Oh gosh, it's so good. And I think that's applicable for different roles in entertainment too. Like, as an actor, I really connect to that, because there's this idea of acting, like if you're super self-indulgent and you're feeling it, but no one's seeing it, no one's connecting with you. It doesn't matter if you're feeling it. If that's not emoting, if no one's receiving it, then it's almost like, you know, what's the point? And I love that. Yeah.
Oh, sorry. There's something great about what Rosemary said, just in terms of how honest she is about her own story and her own themes, and she's aware that goes into her work. Because I do think no matter how versatile you are as a director, no matter how many genres you cross, in order to really find your voice as a filmmaker, you have to kind of understand those central ideas of your own life, because you're going to put them into your movies, whether you're conscious of it or not. Better to be conscious of it. You know, we all kind of tell one story. We just tell it over and over and over again. So it's good to sort of find what that is, and then be okay with it, lean into it. Don't think you're as versatile as you think you are.
Yeah. I love the variation in everyone's answers, specifically, you know, both the influences that we have that contribute to our storytelling style, but also just what happens with our own experiences. And Marshall, I'm going to actually bring this up now. You were you had a Brandeis questionnaire type thing for, I think, the Brandeis magazine at some point. And they asked you a question that really stuck with me, or the answer anyway did. So the question was, what was the most important value you learned at Brandeis? I don't know if you remember what you said, but I'm going to read it. So it's authenticity of experience. That's what you said. The answer was, you learned understanding what your inner experience actually is essential to being an artist.
Yeah.
And Brandeis encouraged you to be an artist and taught you more profoundly what it means to be an artist. But I really sort of connected that with that answer, which is the authenticity of experience really lends to your style, to how you direct, to what you might want to direct. Do you remember that answer now? I don't know if it was
yeah,
just one of those
I
things
do.
you write.
I do, and I also think key to being a director, if you're going to work with actors, is that you have to help the actor find the authenticity in whatever it is they're playing. And it's funny, a lot of directing is like osmosis, that in some way your biorhythms as a director get communicated to the actor without the actor even knowing it. I remember I had an amazing experience. We did a film called Traffic with Steven Soderbergh, and I was on a panel after it came out, and two of the actors from the movie were on the panel, and somebody in the audience said, "Tell me how Soderbergh works with the actors." And they each said, "He never said a word to me." And the audience like burst out laughing. And because the performances in that film were remarkable. And also it was actually 3 different films. The cast never even saw each other. They were literally 3 different stories. And yet all the performances were incredibly consistent throughout the 3 different stories. And I realized at that moment that Soderbergh has a very unique way of directing, which is that he is the director of photography. He is the camera operator, and he holds that camera, which in those days was a very big camera, on his shoulder, and he's 6 feet away from the actors. And if you know him, Soderbergh is one of those people who's very impassive. You don't really know what he's thinking. He's quiet, he's respectful. But that particular way of presenting himself and being right there in every scene evoked the same response from every actor, which is they showed up and said, "I can't fuck around. I got to be serious. I got to be right here, and I got to do this right." And they were all grown-ups in some way, and he never said a word. It was just who he was in their presence, and that was a great lesson for me as a director.
There's so many things that I took from that, so I'm trying to just digest.
Go for it.
I guess my next question then to follow that up would be, what advice do you have in terms of collaboration with so many people on set? I mean, I think of a director kind of like what Jason said, as a conductor, right? There's so many moving parts. There's so many things to have to be aware of, both how you're telling the story visually, how you're, putting all the moving parts together. So I guess one question would be off of Marshall's comment. Do you have any advice to other people in terms of the collaborators on set, in terms of the actors? Do you have any advice for actors? I'm biased, but I was going to throw that in there and you kind of just put that in. But just in general, anyone in part of the set, do you have any advice for directors on how to conduct a set and how to conduct all the moving parts, as well as actors and the people who are being moved around? Any advice to them? So it's a multitude of questions, if you will, but whatever jumps out.
That was a lot of questions.
Yeah, I did that.
I mean, I guess I would just say that, you're sort of painting this canvas and everybody's holding the brush with you. And the way to sort of to ensure some cohesion is to treat everybody like the storytellers that they are. Everybody's there to tell stories. Everybody's there not just to do a job and make a paycheck. There's the magic in sort of the attraction to this business and to want to tell these stories. So to be a part of that, I think it's important as a director to encourage everybody's participation. And as a director, I see some directors who get very threatened by that. But the truth is, if you're the director and you're the director, ultimately you're going to make the final decision, no matter what the contributions are. So, it's being confident in that position and then being open enough to receive.
Yeah. Anyone else?
Well, yeah, I mean, I think, everyone has a different experience, right? So I think, there's so much to what you just asked. It's really true.
I really now in retrospect should have just divided those questions.
No, it's okay. It's collaboration at the heart is definitely, I feel like, I have ideas, but I don't often I'm not a dictator at all. I don't like to, sometimes I don't even necessarily put my specific ideas out there because I want to hear what somebody has to say, because particularly with actors, like, you know, I want people to feel comfortable enough to sort of like say, and I only have my instinct as a director. That's really all I have, right? So I have instincts about, do we have the same taste? Are we going the same, you know, because sometimes, especially in television, they're not people I hired, right? But like for movie they are, but maybe somebody I wanted wasn't there, so it's the producers, somebody or whatever. So I need to leave room to feel like their instinct and kind of get a sense of who they are, and then invite them in more and more and more. But I also think that, you know, when Jason just said, you know, you're the director, you have the final say. I mean, whoa, that's there's a lot of politics at play in this world. And so I think definitely for me, I mean, I don't show up on set, you know, necessarily as Jason or Marshall does, because, you know, look, I'm a female director, I have my own experience. And so half the time people still think I'm hair and makeup or wardrobe when I show up. So, you know, it's a different experience having a voice and being heard and how to express it, and not want to be a tyrant and not want to be, you know, a dictator, but wanting to remain open and kind and loving while being very firm about what I want and decisive. I think the main thing that I think I never get away with, which I hear people get away with all the time, is like, oh, he never makes a decision. And it's like, what? Like, that's my job. Like, I have to make a decision, but I don't know how a lot of people get away with not making decisions. But anyway, I divert. I think that collaboration is key to creating anything that you want to do. And even if it's just writing a script, you want to get notes from people, you want to hear what they have to say, you want to do a reading with actors, you want to hear how actors respond to the script, you know, and you take in what you think is right, and you don't take in what you don't think, but it'll lead you somewhere always if you let other artists into your process.
You know, I think that's great, by the way. I relate to everything you said. You know, I love acting. I would have happily been an actor.
Wow.
I love working with actors. And I realized early on that the analogy was that when I'm directing, I'm mission control in Houston, and the actor is the astronaut doing a spacewalk without a tether. And, you know, they can't do it without me, but they're the ones risking their lives. They're the ones who could just go off, you know, into the universe and never be heard from again and die that way. And I have such unbelievable respect for the courage it takes to act. And when that's my attitude, that shows up on my skin and on my face and how I speak to them. I have no judgment because I'm just in awe of what they do. And the funny thing is, when you have no judgment, you can be incredibly honest with people because they know that they're not going to be shamed for it, you know? And so it becomes this wonderful partnership where you're helping them to get to the place they have to get to. Sometimes they're scared. Sometimes they don't know how to get there. But I'm there to help them arrive at that destination. And so it works out well. And as for everybody else, I think Jason put it really well. The cinematographer's smarter than me. The production designer's smarter than me. They're all smarter than me. And I'm blessed to have these people who are smarter than me, you know, and if I don't like an idea they have, I can say I don't like that idea, and they'll have 10 more that are better, you know. So it's actually, you know, I was so frightened the first time I directed, and I was so shocked to discover that if you're a decent person and you treat people with respect, you are so protected on a set by the people who work there. They didn't get to that job unless they had incredible drive themselves and wanted to be great. And all they want is to be great. And all they want is for you to let them be great. So, you know, it ends up being this very happy experience on the set.
Amazing. Guys, I have a bunch of questions that I would personally like to ask, but we have so many in the chat. So I'm going to just send the mic over to Arnon, who's going to ask some of your questions from the audience.
Thank you, Michelle. I mean, gosh, it's been a long COVID year and however long it's been. So I haven't been on a set in a long time. All this is making me very nostalgic, and hopeful for more productions in the future. We do have a whole bunch of really good questions. I took a bunch of notes off of this stuff in the chat. I'm going to start with one question from Amy Merrill. This is a very Brandeis-y sort of question, which I figured is appropriate for a panel like this. Amy wants to know, was there a Brandeis course or a Brandeis professor who either inspired or propelled or somehow provided that push that got you into film or television?
Well, yeah, I can answer that because it's easy for me. It's really bad. I don't remember the professor's name, but it was the only film course that they had. And we actually were in the theater and we had to watch a movie 2 times in a row. And it was classic movies like Battleship Potemkin, Citizen Kane, but literally watch it once with no sound all the way through and then watch it with sound. And this is back to back. So like, my head exploded. I saw lighting, I saw cutting, I saw angles, I saw camera in a way that I had never watched a movie with no sound before and then watched it with sound. So I would say that changed the course of my life and made me want to be a director.
That's awesome.
Mine is peripherally influential, which is, what was his name? Jerry Cohen?
Yeah.
Who taught who had this whole class on how Oswald acted alone and
The 60s.
Yeah, the 60s, right?
Yeah, I love that class.
Yeah, it was a great class, and I became obsessed, of course, with the Kennedy assassination. And I was taking the class when Oliver Stone's film came out, and I think I saw it 8 times in the theater, and I started to break it down editorially in terms of film stock, in terms of emotionally how it was communicating, how Richardson's lighting was communicating the story and capturing the emotion of the conspiracy. And so from a granular level, I started to really study how films were made, thanks to my obsession with the Kennedy assassination.
I had several professors that I really loved who I think really inspired me. But here's the truth. In those days, back in the early 70s, there was an absolute obsession with old movies among students. And when I was at Brandeis, there were 2 revival theaters in Cambridge, the Orson Welles and the Brattle Street Theater. And then on campus, one night a week, they showed an old movie. So many years later, I realized that although I majored in Old English and my senior thesis was a screenplay of Beowulf, the truth is my real major at Brandeis was old movies. And I didn't even know it at the time. That my education was in classical American film from the 20s to the 50s. And I didn't know that I wanted to be a filmmaker when I just knew that I loved those films. It wasn't until really my senior year when I started to think about, oh my God, I'm going to get out of here and what the hell am I going to do? I started thinking about, oh, maybe make movies. But I think it was just being exposed to this world. All of these people were creating an art form in the 20s, 30s, and 40s. They were discovering it as they went, and it was just a remarkable thing to be sort of embedded in it in that way.
They were still showing old movies once a week when I was there, but it was usually in conjunction with one of the film classes. So I imagine it's probably still happening to some degree or another. We do have another question from Randy Sumner. This is fast forwarding a bit from your Brandeis years to now. As you look back on the work that you've done, is there anything that you made that you wish you could remake now that you have more experience or know a few more things than you did back then? Everybody's chuckling, but nobody has an answer.
For me, I would say no. I mean, I'm happy with everything I've done and I wouldn't change it. I know I don't mean that to sound arrogant. I just think that everything happens in the moment the way it's supposed to. And I'm proud and grateful for the opportunity to have done it. I wouldn't change it.
I think when you make a film, it takes up about 2 years of your life, and you live in it so deeply. By the time you finish that film, you're so aware of everything you did wrong, everything you would do differently. And then you have to talk to people who see the film, who tell you their critique of it. And you're going, oh my God, I knew that 18 months ago. You have to remind me of that. And basically, I personally, I'm so done with the films I've made by the time I'm finished with them that it would be hard for me to go back. That being said, we actually attempted to reboot the series 30-something this past year. It wasn't going to be a remake. It was going to actually pick up 30 years later, which is what it is, with more with the kids of the characters in the show. The original characters would be there, but it would focus more on the people in their 30s now. But we kind of were victims of COVID and ABC's thinking at the time. So that was a great disappointment for us. But I was really looking forward to going back and revisiting that territory.
Just a quick question on that, because I was curious about that, Marshall.
Yeah.
There were some reports that maybe that could be shopped around to different places. Is there any talk of that now?
There's been talk of it, and I would say there's still a possibility, but I think the way the business works right now is they don't generally do that the way they used to. It still happens occasionally, but I would say I wouldn't bet money on it happening anywhere else.
Got it.
Jason, do you have an answer, or are you?
I agree with Marshall and Rosemary, which is that I'm exhausted by the time it's finished, and I never want to see it again. So yeah. I mean, I do know the mistakes that I made, and I still regret them. So I mean, sometimes I think on what if I had done this, but I don't want to go back and do it.
I'm with you.
Understood. We've got a question from Jonathan Levy. And this is a new to town sort of question. Any advice to somebody who's just landed in town in Hollywood, who's just starting out?
Run away.
Break in.
I have advice. Well, by the way, first, what do you want to do? It's really dependent upon what you want to do in the business. And it's also okay not to know, but I'm not sure.
So Jonathan, in the comments, just he wants to write/direct as full-time as possible.
Okay. All right. Well, I have two things to say, and then I'll defer to the others. First of all, if you want to write, I'm going to give you a little parable here, which is to say that in Hollywood, there are thousands of undiscovered great actors because they haven't had a chance to sort of, have that part that shows who they are. And there are hundreds of undiscovered great directors because it's so hard to get hired as a director and they haven't had a chance to show what they would do. And there are zero undiscovered great writers in Hollywood because anybody can write and you can find somebody to read your work. And there's a remarkable thing that happens in this town if you have talent as a writer. And by the way, when I say talent, I'm being very specific about the talent necessary to write for television or movies. It doesn't mean you're not a talented writer if you don't have that talent. It just means, are you suited to do this thing? If you are suited to do this thing, people go crazy over it. And I usually tell people, if they want to be a writer, be prepared to write 3 scripts on spec. And if by the 3rd script, you don't feel this unbelievable energy coming back toward you from people who you get to read it, like, oh my God, this is amazing. Oh my God, this has to get made. Oh, I'm going to call this person. Then you should probably find something else to do, because that's the level of reaction you need from people if you're going to get somewhere. So writing is, in fact, the simplest path to success, but a very difficult one. But it's real simple. Just write.
What about the directing side of the write/direct?
I'll let the others answer that.
I would just say stay focused and don't miss opportunities. Meaning, when you come to Los Angeles, it's very easy to get distracted by Los Angeles, and you don't want to end up in a Raymond Chandler novel. You want to write one, so or Bret Easton Ellis, or you could easily fall down a rabbit hole in Los Angeles and lose your lose your anchor. It's an apocalyptic place if you're not careful. So stay focused on the work at hand.
I mean, I don't know, I feel like we kind of answered it already. I feel like, there's just so many opportunities to write and direct shorts and to get people together, and just everything that you shoot, you will learn something. And then me, I'm a worker. So I needed to earn money for a living. So I did everything from catering to cleaning apartments. Like, I worked in hair salon. Like, I'm just a grunt worker. And so I just work so that I can do whatever. And I have directed television for a long time so that I can literally take that money and fund my own movie, because I don't have an easy access to financing still to this day. So, my third feature is finally a feature that I'm not paying for, which has taken me almost 20 years to get there. So, and that's with, I would say, a pretty prolific amount of television and all episodes that I'm very proud of. It's that difficult. So, when I speak to people in general on these type of panels, I say similar to what Marshall's saying, which is, if there is anything in the world that you can see yourself doing with your life, and I mean anything, whether it's a chef, an architect, whatever, you should really go do that, because this is brutal. It is, and I'm not trying to scare anybody away. You just have to have that kind of fortitude and perseverance. And no matter what happens, no matter how you're working, how much it takes, a shit ton of perseverance and tenacity. And really, you can be the best writer on the planet. If you don't have tenacity, nothing's gonna happen with your material. And that's the quality. I think Jason spoke to that a little bit with finding your voice and having confidence. And I think that's what you have to affirm for yourself and like really hustle. But again, you gotta hustle, but you have to connect with people in an authentic way and not be desperate and needy. And so just go create. You call yourself a director when you've got a few shorts that you can show somebody. Just a couple minutes. Nobody has more than 2 or 3 minutes either to watch anything. So keep it short, keep it funny, keep it entertaining, and just do it and earn money however you can.
I'd also say, like, to your point, trust that if you're an artist, you are by nature resilient, and in that resilience, every time you get knocked down, you will both become, you will find more vulnerability in your work, and you'll also be stronger to survive the next time you get knocked down. So I think that's the nature of being an artist. And if you can't handle it like that, then like she said, maybe there's something else for you.
I want one more thing to add to this, which I find to be just as true today as when I first came out here, which is that everything is based on relationships here. You have to be able to create relationships with people in power, because they hire the people they know. And one of the ways to create that relationship, it may sound odd, is to become an assistant to somebody, but you have to choose the right person to become an assistant to. And what that generally means is a producer who actually gets things made. That can be an actor, that can be a director, or it can be a production company. But what happens in these companies, they get very busy. And if someone loves their assistant moves up. In my company, every single assistant I have ever had has become a producer, or actually everyone has become a producer. And some then became writers, and then you can be a producer and then become a director. The point is, you need a way into the business, and the way into the business is relationships. And one way to create relationships is to go work at a company and be willing to just make the telephone calls and do the work of being an assistant, knowing that you are that you are becoming, utterly important to the person you're working for, and they're seeing you as being more valuable than just an assistant.
I'm going to add to this because this is kind of, I think Arnon and I, we have this vision in total of what Arts Alumni is, what Showbiz Deis is, and it's this idea of creating a community where people in this industry can kind of learn from each other, like this panel, but also rely on each other. And so I would encourage people to not just think of these panels as a way of learning from these amazing panelists and using the alumni that way, but also kind of working with each other, meeting people who are attending these panels and connecting with them that way, because those can be your future collaborators as well. And reaching out to alum to potentially ask for a PA position or a day on set, or just ask for coffee. And it doesn't, like I said, have to be these particular panelists or any of our panelists, but also people who are, our alum who, we haven't reached out to yet, or people who are just attending these calls, and you can connect with them that way. So definitely rely on each other in creating this community as well.
We do have specifically for the entertainment world, we have Brandeis Alumni in Film and Television, which is a very active Facebook group. When I got out to LA, and Marshall, I want to thank you for creating this segue to really what we wanted to wrap up on. When I got out to LA about 10 years ago, the Brandeis Alumni Network in the industry didn't really exist. There were people who knew each other a little bit, but you really had to dig in order to find them. Right now, we've got an active Facebook group. I don't remember what the numbers are. We must be close to 200 members on the group. People share their successes, the little victories that matter. We get to cheer each other along. People hire and cast
Job opportunities
on that group. And I would say, to me, the important thing is it's not just for folks who are starting out. If you are farther along in the industry and you have opportunities, don't forget Brandeis when it comes time to kind of share those opportunities and give the rest of us a bit of a chance to hop on board your success train. Gee, that was corny. But no, I'm speaking kind of off the cuff and from the heart here. The alumni network can be really strong. It can be really incredible. We've got some really, really successful alumni who are doing incredible work. But it's going to take all of us kind of working together to forge those connections and to keep that network strong. And Michelle and I are working on creating a foundation for that. But in order for that to really work, it's all the rest of you participating and getting involved and being part of it. So with that, I want to thank Marshall and Rosemary and Jason very, very much for participating in this panel and really elevating the network in doing what you're doing. Like I said at the beginning, put pins in your calendars for Thursday, July 27th.
Tuesday, July 27th.
Thank you. Tuesday, July 27th.
I got you. Yeah, 4 p.m. Pacific, 7 p.m. Eastern. We're going to have another panel such as this. If you guys have any suggestions for future panels that you would want to have, we're thinking of at one point doing a pitching panel where people can pitch ideas to whomever and we can practice pitching. But if anyone has any other ideas as to what we can do, we're so open to that. We're doing them every month this year. That's our goal. We already have the dates, so they're in the calendar. They have to happen. Yeah.
And if you know Brandeis alumni in the industry that somehow we haven't sniffed out, definitely let us know. We'd love to get the network to be as comprehensive as possible. And
join the Facebook groups. They're in the chat. Highly recommend seeing Jason Searching for Alison Porchnick, which is just another example of leaving Brandeis. And he was able to, one of his, the first years out, he was able to put together this amazing short film with all these incredible alumni. So it's a really great directory, for who went to Brandeis and who's in the industry. So I recommend it. We do.
That's it from us.
Thank you.
Excellent. We also have, like I think we might have mentioned it, a series of the previous panels available
On YouTube.
on the Brandeis website. So if you guys want to see any of the ones we used to do, we've done a theater one, we've done a TV film executives one, we've done a TV writers one, graphic novels and illustrators one. Please feel free to find that on the Brandeis website. Thank you guys so much for attending this. Thank you to our panelists again, Marshall, Rosemary, Jason. Thank you, Arnon, of course. And thank you, Courtney. She's up there in the ether, in the Brandeis Ether and Arts Alumni Council. We appreciate you, and we will see you next month.